Panic sets in as the last rays of sun disappear. You know what time it is, and you know what is coming. You hastily lock your family away in the cellar. You can't afford silver, so Ein will have to do as you lock them in the darkness. It's almost time. Your wife holds a shotgun steady at the door, waiting to see if this time will be the time they get through. As the clouds part and the moon shines, you hear it. Howl after howl after howl in the distance. As your adrenaline spikes, the pain isn't as bad. Your eyes start burning as your skull distorts. Your nails are ripped from their beds as claws take their place. Your canines triple in size as your jaw stretches out. Your humanity is slowly disappearing. Before your sense of understanding fades off, you remember. You forgot to lock the cellar door. Hello guys, and welcome to the latest SleepyTalk podcast. Today, I'm joined with Ryan and Jordan again. Hello!
Surprise, surprise.
Surprise!
It's been a while, guys.
It has.
A whole 2 weeks, hasn't it, man?
I know.
How have you been?
Yeah.
Shit.
We could pretend that we didn't do this
yeah,
pre-cast if you want and do it now. Yeah.
How have you been?
Been good, man. Just selling e-liquid, TGWD.
Heard you had some vape reviews.
Yeah, I had a vape review.
Your black currant is a bit like Ribena, just not concentrated.
I thought that it was but a bit like that.
So today we're going to be finishing off the trilogy, our own trilogy, with werewolves. So we've done vampires, we've done skinwalkers, or as Ryan likes to call them, skin crawlers, from Kong Skull Island. Or is that Skullcrawler?
Scalp crawler.
It's skull, isn't it? Oh well, we all get it wrong here. What are we, professionals? No.
I just make it up as I go along, personally. But
Just a guy that comes and speaks.
yeah, but my new mic sounded smooth.
Buttery smooth, actually.
I'm going to distort it so hard when you say smooth. So we're going to be talking about werewolves. So Jordan, take us away.
Take us away. Well, okay. Well, as you say, werewolves. Werewolves are obviously a popular creature that many representation media like to use. One of my favorite TV shows is actually Being Human, which involves a werewolf, a vampire, and a ghost. Obviously, we've
Please say the UK version.
Of course, the UK version. Of course, the UK version. I've not even watched the American version. I don't even want to
You may proceed.
I didn't even know there was an American version until looking at some videos in preparation for this, and I'm like, I don't remember this underground like fight thing in what's going off. Why is this so corny? But yeah, sorry, carry on. Don't watch it. It's bad.
Don't watch it. It's bad. I will take that recommendation and just kind of throw it in the trash because I'm definitely not touching that. But as I say, werewolves, quite popular in popular culture. They're always showing the human side of it and then transforming into the werewolf. They kind of go into gruesome detail about it. Obviously, an old film, Werewolf in Paris, stuff like that. It kind of shows the gruesome transformation process that the afflicted have to go through. Which to me personally, kind of obviously watching the kind of nails elongate and the legs kind of crack and everything like that, it's quite gruesome. I don't know if any both of you would agree on that one or not, but I definitely wouldn't want to go through that particular process. It's just
You say this. I disagree.
What, you want to
Werewolves
go
are
through that?
hands down my favorite out of all the supernatural creatures, paranormal entities, you name it. Werewolves are my boy. I love everything about lycanthropy. And the fact that man becomes beast insane powers. You know, a lot of sort of supernatural creatures are rivaled by werewolves. Werewolves are just so OP.
Yeah, I think that's like what the Van Helsing films they're just kind of like the opposite of vampires. Vampires are actually scared of werewolves and stuff like that. They're kind of like there's the silver bullet that werewolves that are to werewolves are to vampires. So, and I say they do have, you know, superhuman strength and everything like that. But as I say, I wouldn't want to transform into one personally myself. They may be your favorite, you know, supernatural creature, but I still don't think you'd want to go through that particular transformation every full moon.
I think you'd get used to it.
I mean, as I say, get used to it. I mean, going back to being human, he got used to it in the end. And I think, what was it, later was it the first or second season, the first one? Obviously, his girlfriend got afflicted by the werewolf curse, and obviously she had to go through it the first time, and obviously went over the horrific nature of that as well. But I suppose anything the first time's going to hurt. I guess you do get used to the pain because you just prepare, don't you?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be down for that sort of transformation either, really. I mean, for what you have to go through for the reward, nah, give me vampires. Like, give me anything else.
I think the thing is, though, with werewolves, right? So if we're going down certain mythology on werewolves will only live as long as what a human would. But during the time that they are alive, they are a lot stronger in their human form. They have a lot more resistance to things, almost like the Hulk protecting Bruce Banner. They do possess a lot more strength in human form, and they are less susceptible to sort of mortal attacks.
But you don't get to enjoy those benefits as easily, though, do you? You don't. In depictions of werewolves, they seem to like lose control. It's not like, I've got all these powers, I can utilize them. It's just I've got all these powers, and they're just doing what they want.
But what I'm talking about the human side of it, like pre-transformation. So you're already afflicted with the curse.
Yeah.
As in human form, you are still a lot stronger, a lot more mobile, a lot more efficient in what you're doing.
Okay.
It's just that once a month you turn into a raging beast that technically has no control, but some depictions they do eventually. It probably depends how sort of long they've been a werewolf. Maybe they do, or they could gain some sense of morality while they are a wolf.
I've just had a thought that like women should be able to like manage the transformation and stay in control far better than really.
I was going to say something, but I decided not to.
You've gone down that route. You've gone down that route.
You know what I mean? But you don't see that many were ladies, or no, what would they be called? Because were is just man, isn't it? Or like,
well, there'll still be werewolves. It's not like women.
Werewolves. No, because
were
means man, isn't it?
That sounds like some sort of like psychopathic murderer that skins women alive and just wears them. Women.
The were from werewolf is Old English for man, isn't it?
Yeah, and women are part of mankind.
Yeah, we are all mankind.
Oh, okay, so. I thought it was like man as in like, you know, genitals and all that lot.
No, I don't think it's that deep. I think it's just man as a whole. So women are part of mankind. I mean, I I'm not going to go down the sort of sexism behind.
Yeah, I was going to say
like called mankind. We're all under the same umbrella, so I think that werewolves. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sure Jordan's furiously typing in the background trying to prove me wrong again. But
not doing anything of the sort. I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
But for me, I don't. I think that werewolf is gender neutral.
I think it is. Yeah,
and we're all inclusive
it's got to
here.
be. As proven previously. As proven previously. Yeah.
Exactly. You know, we don't discriminate.
Nope.
Yeah. Except for witches, we don't like them.
Male
or female witches.
You can't speak for me.
Maybe
I don't like werewolves. Maybe I reject them.
What, do you reject the idea of them or just reject them in general?
Just probably just in general, probably. Like the idea of them can float around all they want, but if one turns up in anything other than an idea, get the hell out of here, mate. That's what I'm going for.
So it's like a bear. I reject you. I reject the general thesis of you.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, I'll go away then. I won't attack you.
I don't understand why you like them the most out of all of like the spooky wookies.
It's just the whole man becoming a beast sort of thing for me. It's kind of like, you know.
So you get more into Lycans or werewolves specifically? Sorry.
I like the kind of lore behind it. I like the whole, you know, it's just, for me, it just ticks all the boxes. I like
the wolves specifically, or
yeah, like
okay,
wolves are like cool as hell.
Yeah,
Wolves for me are awesome, and werewolves, you know, man becomes beast, and just wreaks havoc. And the only thing that can really put them down is Silver Bullet. There's obviously other depictions in different mythology that you can put a werewolf down with certain other things, but we'll go, well, for me, I'm going au naturel, Silver Bullet, or silver stabbed into them.
Yeah.
But one of my favourite films when I was a kid was Dogs of War. Hey everyone, it's me from the future. I said Dogs of War, I really meant Dog Soldiers, so apologies for that. Go check out Dog Soldiers.
Not come across that one.
Yeah.
It's a British film. I think they were up in Scotland. It's been a while since I've seen it, but basically some soldiers are doing a training exercise up in Scotland or in the forest somewhere, and they get set upon by a pack of werewolves, and they hide out in this very big stately home, and it's just an all-out war between these werewolves and these soldiers. And if I watch it now, I think it was crap, but that
got
film
taken
definitely
away at the time.
Yeah, it's so good, and there's such a twist in it as well. Like, for what it is, a low-budget werewolf film.
I do enjoy some low-budget sort of action films, so I might give it a go.
Yeah, it's very good. I do recommend it from my child's perspective. So yeah, I did enjoy it. I watched it repeatedly as well. It's the whole thing about werewolves. I'm a fanboy.
I like me and ninjas then.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, cool. It's just a shame that werewolves don't exist and ninjas do, innit? So I'm not just lost in fantasy.
Well, you know, have you ever been out have you ever been in the woods in the middle of a full moon?
Yes.
Don't lie to
me. I was about to say, that kind of just puts your theory down, don't it? Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yes,
moving on.
That's kind of sus. Not gonna lie, that's kind of sus.
Yeah, that's sus.
Yeah.
So maybe you're throwing us off the scent, and you, in fact, are the werewolf.
I am kind of hairy. Well, on the face and head only, really, I suppose. I like your story at the start, bro.
Did you?
Yeah, that was actually a pretty good story. Yeah?
You didn't actually mention it was like one of yours.
I literally wrote it 10 minutes before this podcast. So
it's quite nice how these spooky wooky stories, they tend to, one thing I've noticed as I read more and more of them is the sort of build tension, and then just as you're like wanting it to pop, the story finishes.
Yeah.
And that's you know what I mean, that's what yours did, you know, left like, you know, what do you call it, cock teased me. So yeah, man, definitely did its job.
Cool, thank you for that. I'm not releasing it.
How do you release these things?
I could put it on Reddit, short scary stories. I could put it on there. I could do, I guess.
It's just a copy and paste job, I'm imagining.
Yeah, but I noticed when I was reading it that I've made a mistake. So in the first sort of paragraph, I put, "You hastily lock your family away in the cellar," and then the last one is, "You forgot to lock the cellar door." I mean, that can be open to interpretation.
I mean, that could be open to, like, you kind of thought you locked them, but you didn't lock it with a key. You just kind of shut the door on them. You know, it could be interpreted that way.
So, you know.
Well, there you go, man. Just give it a little bit of a tidy up. Get it up on that Reddit thing.
Yeah,
it's amazing how, you know, I read it and I thought, yeah, that's I'm happy at reading that out, and then as I'm reading it, I'm like, oh no, what have I done?
I read it,
There's
I
no
read
going
it,
back.
and now you're gonna put it up on Reddit
Yeah,
after you
there we
correct
go.
it. Well, there you go, man.
Exactly.
Have you done any sort of like of your own before? Because you've always, like, as far as I'm aware, only ever read other people's.
No, I did. So I'm just getting it's called "Don't Open Your Eyes." That's kind of a true story from my perspective.
Okay.
I'm just seeing when it was actually
It's about,
when I actually released it.
was that about a month ago?
No, it was 4 months ago.
Oh.
I'll put it in the description anyway. It's called "Don't Open Your Eyes," and the premise of that is when I was going through a bad breakup and stress got the best of me. And yeah, I'm not going to ruin it, but we did talk about this story on our Sleep Paralysis Demons podcast.
Yes, I remember.
Ah.
Yes.
So yeah, you should probably watch it, Ryan. You might enjoy
Probably.
it.
But I don't even watch my own videos. What are you talking about?
Yeah, it doesn't have the same sort of ending.
No.
No, as
You
the one
wasn't
that I've just
writing
done,
it.
but
Was you writing it with the intention of it becoming a story, or was it just a bit of an expression that?
it's more of an expression.
Yeah.
It's like, this is what happened to me. Give or take a few things that I've kind of fabricated for the story's pleasure.
Yeah.
I'll say, but the premise is true. What I went through was true. True to myself, anyway.
But some of these scenes have been some of these scenes have been created for entertainment purposes.
Exactly.
Was it dramatic purposes or something like that?
Yeah. So obviously,
Sound-
life in general is boring. You have to polish that turd, as we'll say.
I polish to the max, mate. Polish to the max. Right. So yeah, werewolves, mate.
Yeah, werewolves,
Yeah.
not sleep paralysis demons.
Yeah. How do
Yeah,
they come
that's
about,
that.
werewolves? I've got written down in front of me: bitten, cursed, or born of. Because that's what I come up with.
Born of,
bitten
eh?
by or born
It's
of a
funny
werewolf.
you say
isn't it?
that,
If
because
a couple of werewolves have a baby, that's a baby werewolf, isn't it?
that's what happened in Being Human. But I don't think the story actually progressed. Jordan
No,
might
it
tell me.
it didn't progress any further than that. It kind of went up. The baby was born, but then they moved away, and then it was obviously focused on the new set of characters after that. So we don't actually know what happened.
Well, they didn't move
We
away.
don't talk about the new characters, do we?
No, Jordan's wrong here. I remember it.
Or
I
was it they
remember
moved away to bloody Wales or something like that?
No, so the baby got kidnapped.
Oh, okay.
So after I've forgotten his name, but the werewolf and his missus, after he afflicted her with the curse, they ended up getting stuck in the same place, and they transformed into werewolves because of the full moon. They ended up having passionate hugging, and she got pregnant from it. So some supernatural sect, who I think they were werewolves too, or they might have been vampires, kidnapped the baby, and the werewolf dad went in to save them, and he got captured, and then he decided he tried to transform it into a werewolf in the middle of the day to save his baby, and he did it by looking at a picture of the moon.
Okay.
And it killed him. He managed to turn into a werewolf, and he managed to massacre this whole group of kidnappers and whatnot who had supernatural powers. I can't remember whether they were werewolves or what, but he managed to
sure they were
absolutely
vampires.
annihilate them. Yeah, he managed to absolutely annihilate them. But then when he reverted back into his human form, there was some sort of protein or something that he would have gotten from the actual moon that helped him transform back. So it ended up killing him.
I must have just completely blocked that out then. Must have been too much of an emotional pain for me.
Mm-hmm.
If I remember, it was one of those programs that sort of got weaker as it went on, and
Yeah.
as those things tend to happen. I watch because I've invested so much time anyway, but I just only half absorb what's actually going off.
Yeah. Speaking of which, Ryan is starting up his own podcasting channel talking about weeb stuff.
Oh, you bellend. Speaking of which, just drifting off as shit gets weaker. Yeah. I mean, I'll be fair. There are many anime that do like dip and then get better, and then dip and then get better. But any werewolves in any anime that we can think of? Is that Beastals or Bestials or whatever that's on Netflix?
There's got Helsing.
Oh, what's it called now? Helsing's good.
I can't fit. I'm trying to think of any that I'm a fan of, that style werewolves, and I can't. None jump to mind.
There is one, and I can't remember the name of it, but
what was that? Is Wolf Children? Have you seen Wolf Children? Is it called Wolf Children? This is a very, very artsy, very, very well animated anime, and it's about like these. It's not really werewolves, but it follows these two kids, and sometimes they're like wolves, dog type things, and sometimes they're human. And as they grow up, you come to understand throughout the anime that they're these hybrids, humans, wolves, and as they grow up, they have to pick which one they want to live their adult life as, a wolf or a human. And the girl of the siblings is a brother and sister. The girl picks humans, the boy picks wolves, and then it sort of shows the relationship as they separate, going to live their own natural ways. And she gets saved by the wolves, and it's like it's very, very, very good anime, very good. Wolf Children, it is called. 2012 anime. It was one that I actually watched and was sort of emotionally moved by, rather than just like raw action, weeb it up, moved by. So it's definitely a good shout if anybody's into anime and into wolves.
This is what you're likely to expect on Ryan's podcast. So
sorry,
that little segment.
Sorry.
Yeah, you enjoyed that little segment. We'll have to leave links in the description.
So when I finally do one, I've only been talking about it for like 2 months now, but
yeah. I can't remember what it's called. It's like Blood something, but there is one with a vampire werewolf, and they're kind of in hell.
Blood Lad.
But Blood Lad, that's it.
Blood Lad.
Actually. That's it. Yeah, the vampire is like he's like really into Japanese culture and obviously Dragon Ball Z and all that kind of stuff. I think he even mimics some.
And he falls in love with that girl, and she ends up dying, doesn't she?
Something like
she's
that.
a ghost, and he's trying to bring her back.
Yeah. Something. I think I only watched the. I didn't watch all of it, so I don't know how it all ended. I should probably get around to watching it because it was really good.
There's another one I'm aware of, Wolf's Reign, that used to be on the anime channel for the glimpse of time that it was on Sky or whatever. These like wolves are being hunted. The internet description is hunted to near extinction. Wolves disguise themselves as humans and seek a fabled paradise. I remember watching a few episodes of that. It's very artsy and sort of dark. And again, it just shows like some scenes they're human, other scenes they're wolves. And you understand the premise, but there's no sort of direct showing of the transformation. They just run past a tree and, they're in the wolf form, then run past a lamppost, and all of a sudden they're in their human form again.
Skinwalkers.
That was last week, mate.
Yeah, I know, but you're describing skinwalkers.
Yeah, they could be. But in this particular, on this particular one, it's all wolves in it. So
yeah. But yeah, like that's what you'd expect on Ryan's podcast.
Sorry, I could talk about stuff that like media that isn't anime, like Misfits. Wasn't there a werewolf on that? Was it Misfits? One of them was a werewolf, weren't there?
I don't think Misfits.
Oh the Misfits. The guy, the funny kid that was like
Immortal.
Yeah, his mum's boyfriend. Remember near the start, his mum's boyfriend who got kicked out of the house for because his mum's boyfriend did get on with him because he's a bit of a prick. I loved him, but he's a bit of a prick. It turns out that his mum's boyfriend was a werewolf as a result of the storm. And in one of the early episodes, they found him in the morning behind some bins, butt naked. And then throughout the episode, you learn, you learn that it turned out to be a werewolf.
They kill him, don't they?
Yeah. They kill pretty much everybody that come by. Yeah. It's very dark, that program, wasn't it?
Yeah, it is dark, but it's good. It's dark, but very good.
I started watching it again. The only reason it sprang to mind, I started watching it again with Nat recently. And I'm watching it back like for the third time now, but I'm watching it now thinking this is odd. It's hilarious and dark at the same time,
Yeah.
and it somehow doesn't make you feel guilty for laughing at the darkness, whereas other times you might feel a bit guilty for being so twisted. But no,
Is it him that says, "Who shit my pants"?
yeah, he's
Dead. He comes back
just-
from the dead. He's like,
he
"Who
is-
shit my pants?"
Yeah, he's my idol. Like the way he just gives 0 Fs to anybody else's feelings around him is like, what a legend. But I'm a bit, of a narc, so yeah, narcissist. Sorry.
So yeah, powers in general, things like that for werewolves for me. Whew. But the origin of a werewolf is quite an interesting tale.
Do tell, because that's something I didn't actually get round to looking too much
So
into.
there's many different depictions of the origin. However, the one that I like the best is the UK version, of course. Back in the 16th century, there were a large species of wolf that were native to the UK. And these wolves could actually stand up on their hind legs. A lot of wolves can still stand up on their hind legs, but these are tower to be like 7-8 foot. If I remember correctly, on their hind legs, and that's where sort of like the mystery came around, that these giant wolves that could walk and were sort of bipedal. And to me, that's where I think werewolves sort of originated from, were just these normal native wolves.
Weren't they just like skinny bears?
They were big. They were big.
Yeah, but bears are big. Skinny bears could look like a
yeah, but these are actually like big wolves that could stand up. Not for long.
Could you imagine like one of those? He's walking along. You obviously sees big, massive wolf, and then suddenly it gets on its hind legs and walks towards you. I guess it'd be the same feeling as like when a bear does it. It'd be freaking.
That's literally what I was picturing in my head, and I'm like, well, a wolf standing up, a big wolf standing up, could look like just a normal bear standing up.
Well, there's when I was a kid, I went to one of my grandparents' friends' houses in Hull.
If you're about to tell me you came across a werewolf, mate, I'm leaving this right now.
Hang on. Because their grandson was also one of like my friends through childhood, through my grandparents. So almost like a cousin, if that makes any sense. Like when I'd go around to my grandparents, sometimes he'd be there. Or when my grandparents went round to his grandparents' house with me, he'd be there, etc. They moved to Hull anyway. And I went for a week in Hull, stopping over at their house. So anyway, I went round to his auntie's house, who also lived in Hull, but it was like Barton upon Humber, which is like 5-6 miles away from Hull. And they had a deerhound. Now, I don't know whether you've seen what a deerhound looks like, but I was 10, and this deerhound was at least sort of like 7 foot. It was huge, and we were playing with it with a tennis ball, and I was terrified because the way that deerhounds kind of act, they're not sniffing dogs, they're sightseeing dogs, and they're named because they used to take down deer. So they'd look at you, and their eyes would pierce into you. And anyway, I had this tennis ball, and I wasn't going to throw it, but this deerhound put its like front paws on my shoulders and then just looked at me, and that scared the life out of me. I don't know whether you want to have a quick look at what deerhounds look like.
I'm just having a look. Yeah,
I have now that I think I've seen some before. They always look old, no matter how young they are.
Yeah,
they're very similar to Irish wolfhounds.
Yeah,
they're very similar to Irish wolfhounds.
It's funny that because you look for deerhound, and one of the first results is Scottish deerhound. So yeah, I was very much into big dogs for a while. I lived with a fella that had a couple of Italian Mastiffs crossed with like pits. So the back end was very nimble, the front end was massive, and these dogs, like, you could ride on them. And then I didn't realize dogs come that big, and then he shows me just dog after dog that is coming up like small horses and stuff, and this is one of those breeds. Yeah, and they do look very wolfish, but pretty just like malnourished. if anything.
Put
don't
yourself as a 10-year-old.
Yeah, I know. Like, you don't even
Yeah.
need it. Like, that must have been a small, like, you know what I mean? How tall was it when it fully stood up? Was it fully standing up on your shoulders or partly?
No, but this thing was like, I think fully standing there, like 6 to 7 feet.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at pictures next to, these might be exceptionally large ones, but I'm looking at pictures next to like fully grown adults and the weight like up to the waist. So I'm thinking if that's on its hind legs and you're 10 years old, damn.
Yeah, I was probably about 5 foot something.
Mm.
So it was definitely like a foot to 2 foot taller than what I was when it had its paws on me and looking straight at me.
Yeah, I'm looking at one now where it's just looking with its weird yellowy, it's on something. Yeah, that does look scary as hell.
So, you know, so yeah, that's one of the things. So the dog was lovely. I know that now, but at the time I was terrified and I just didn't know what to do. So I just stood there frozen while it was looking at me.
Mate,
And like I said, these dogs aren't kind of like normal dogs. They don't sniff around. They don't lick. They literally just stare because they are sightseeing hounds. So when you see a dog, or obviously it's natural for them, but to dogs that I know, so like terriers and Labradors and Alsatians and things, this dog was acting very unnaturally to my concept of what dogs should act like.
Yeah, it's got more of its wild instincts about it.
Yeah, and the fact that it was just using its sight, not sniffing, not doing anything, it was just like, I can see this, I'm going to it. Like, you know, it's not a...
It doesn't matter if you was just 10 years old. Like, if I was, I'm 31. At 31, if something, you know, if you take the size ratio into consideration now at this age, anything that much bigger than you, that's an animal. When you recognize something as an animal, especially a domestic animal, when it's that large, it's going to make you wary anyway. You know,
wary.
Werewolf. Nice. On point again tonight. But yeah, I'd be scared. I don't even like getting closer to horses, and horses are meant to be that big. So
I got knocked out by a horse once.
I got chased.
You got knocked out by a horse.
Well, I mean, you're gonna say, well, you didn't get knocked out by a horse, but technically I did.
Have you been on these fox hunts, Sabs?
No, so I used to work at a farm park, and back when I was in college, so 17, 18, I think I was 17, and they used to do like horse rides round the actual farm park.
Right.
And there was a guy that did it like especially, like he knew the horses, he like not reared them, but you know, he owned one of the horses that was there and was familiar with all the other horses, so he used to come down on a Saturday and a Sunday and take kids round for like a small fee. Yeah. And they could sit on the horse and ride round the actual farm park, and that was their thing. He had to dash off for whatever reason, and he gave me the reins to one of these horses and said, "Oh, can you just take this kid round?" So I was like, yeah, sure. Like thinking it was like a dog. So I wrapped the actual lead around my arm like a dog.
Yeah.
But he trusted these horses, and the horses trusted him. So he never put the bridle in the mouth.
Right, okay.
So for those of you that don't know, the bridle is like a metal bar that goes across sort of like their mouth, inside their mouth, across their cheeks, so that if you pull back on it, it hurts them, so that they take a second and stop. Without this in, you're trying to pull a train backwards. So anyway, this horse for some reason got spooked as soon as I sort of like unstrapped it from the post where it was on, wrapped it around my arm, started walking. It bolted. There's a 6, maybe 5-year-old kid on top of this horse, holding on for dear life.
And you're being
I managed
dragged.
to yeah, I don't know how I managed to stand upright, but I was like, it was almost like in a cartoon, you know, where they're trying to pull something and their feet dig into the ground and sort of carry on sliding. It was exactly like that, but for not very long. I managed to get this kid off the top, and I sort of like throw him just with one arm.
Yeah.
Like throw him away from the horse, and I'm trying to sort of unravel the lead from my arm. And as I managed to finally get the last bit off, the horse turns, and I'm like a foot, 2 feet away from the actual rear of the horse. And as it turns, I managed to let go of the lead and slid straight into a wall, head first. I was gone.
Mate, you got
Banging
knocked
your head
out by
against
a
the wall,
wall. Not
Yeah.
See, I knew you was going to say that. Yeah, so that's why I said it at the beginning. All right, but yeah, no. So technically speaking, the horse knocked me out by using the environment against me. But yeah, no. So with the sort of deerhound and my experience from it, I can definitely see where if you came across a wolf that was like 7, 8, 9 feet tall, stood up on its hind legs, you might be scared enough to think that's a supernatural entity. That must be a man wolf.
Supernatural, yeah, definitely.
You know.
Supernatural. The definition of supernatural is something that is natural but super in it. So, what's the other one? You got supernatural and
Paranormal.
Paranormal, yeah. So yeah, it falls under supernatural, definitely. I would say. Yeah. I'm no professional.
Yeah, supernatural, paranormal. I know they're different definitions, but I use them both in tongue in cheek for each other. So I might get one wrong, might get one right, but yeah, I'm not bothered. But
to be fair, when I was, early days looking into the difference, because I need to know what I was talking about on these podcasts, it was commonly said at all the places I looked that they're used in place of each other all the time within the community. So I ain't gonna take any points away from you.
Cheers, bro. Appreciate it. TGWD, vape.
because he gave me a pass, so yeah.
Yeah, he gave me a pass, and it'll give you a hit, a nicotine hit.
I was gonna say, like,
but it won't be a nicotine hit because nicotine needs to be sold separately.
Yeah, buddy, but you can still buy the Nick shots from the e-cig shop. Let's milk that train.
I'm not plugging Nat because she hasn't sponsored us to go to that axe wielding maniac hotel yet.
It's in another country, isn't it?
Yeah, she can still sponsor us.
How? COVID, bruv. She ain't gonna give.
Oh,
like what? What do you want to do? Give you the money to do it, and then you not use the money for what was intended?
Do you think my name's Kyle?
I didn't want to mention any names. But...
It doesn't matter. He comes on the podcast regular. He just never listens to him. So
my guy.
Yeah. So yeah, she can put some money aside.
All right. Okay. Cool. Get the podcast up on Spotify, and then I can talk to her about it.
I'll do it.
Yeah. She's a Spotify user, not a YouTube user. So as far as she knows, I'm just hanging with the bros right now when I do all this thing every second Sunday. Yeah.
So what did you want to talk about, Ryan?
I've sort of mentioned all the things that I sort of found interesting. Other than the howl part, I mentioned a bit earlier on, like allegedly you can be bitten, be cursed, or born of werewolves. I think that's what happened. I mentioned born of werewolves, and we started talking about
being human.
Yeah. But I don't know. You like werewolves far more than I do.
There's so many different depictions. There's so many different depictions, and that's why we went off on the tangent with being human. Is just because he was attacked by a werewolf, she was attacked by him, and then they did passionate hugging while in werewolf form.
Yeah, I think I remember that, innit? They sort of hugged and then it sort of pans upwards, doesn't it?
Yeah,
I think
they did passionate
hairy
hugging.
Back.
Yeah, bareback.
Way back, mate.
And yeah, so they were terrified that the baby would come out as a wolf.
Oh yeah, tear her apart, innit? Yeah, I can remember all of that. Man.
Yeah, but the wolf, the baby, I think it had sort of the blood of a werewolf, but I don't think, from my recollection, that it ever changed into a werewolf at that time.
Don't think so. No.
I'm not too. It was a long time ago I watched it. I don't recall seeing anything like that in it. So, but yeah, we go then. I brought up what I wanted to bring up, and then we go back on to being human, mate. So, yeah,
Sorry.
Good. It's fine. Tangents, mate, is what we're about. Yeah, but I was just wondering if there was anything else that was like, because werewolf. I mean, vampires, for instance, and most other things we spoke about. There are lots of ways you can become one of these type of beings, but there's sort of like a generally accepted handful of, like vampires, you get bitten, and like that's about it in it.
Yeah.
Werewolves being so close to vampires, why is that as well? Very closely associated with, like, you think werewolves and instantly, a bit like Aliens and Predator, you think
No, I was just about
werewolves
to
and
say.
vampire, weren't you? But
Yeah.
that sort of origin had to be forced between Aliens and Predator, with that dodgy movie that all of a sudden tied in and changed the lore a bit. Like, but it doesn't feel the same with werewolves and vampires. To me, it feels like they've sort of been intertwined almost from
Day one.
origins. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like there is a depiction of vampires when they're killed. If you don't burn them, that they turn into werewolves. I think Jordan mentioned it on the actual vampire podcast. I didn't look too deeply into it, but I think Jordan did.
Yeah,
This
maybe
is
he
I
where I
did.
can't remember
remember.
now, actually, to be perfectly honest.
No. But yeah, so there's always been man versus vampire, and there's loads of depictions of wars against sort of vampires and things. But there's also always been sort of like the supernatural struggle between vampires and werewolves. And I think it's mainly for the fact that vampires are undead, whereas werewolves aren't. Werewolves are sort of the living supernatural force, and vampires are the dead supernatural force. So they are natural enemies.
It just come to me as you said that. Then, like, humans and vampires are at war, and then vampires and werewolves are at war. It's a bit like the humanity's lost, or the human touch is lost the further down the line you get. So vampires are far more humane. Well, I suppose then werewolves, when they're in their werewolf form, are far more humane. You don't really see any depictions of werewolves showing any sort of human characteristics. Yeah. I mean, even in the, well, I suppose, what was that, Teen Wolf? Was that like a friendly werewolf type thing, or was he a bad wolf? Because that was quite a young audience movie, if I remember correctly. So I would have thought, I've never seen him, but I would have thought the werewolf in that weren't so savage.
I think it was a series.
I
I didn't actually watch it because I thought it's another American Werewolf spin-off thing.
Weren't it quite an old school movies? There were like some really old Teen Wolf movies back in the day.
There may
Well, it
have
was
been.
like,
yeah.
There was like Werewolf in Paris. I mean, they're all pretty much classed as teen, weren't they?
Yeah,
Werewolf in London and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that they haven't had what vampires have done to them, where the sort of vampires are pretty, like I say, they become more humane as time's gone on, so much so that, they're sparkly and stuff and not scary so much. But
we're not going to Twiglet, not again.
Yeah. The werewolves,
no, we can do, because the werewolves
not so much. The werewolves have always sort of stayed very sort of beastly, innit? So where vampires bridge that gap between human and sort of the beastie.
Yeah, so I mean, if we look at we'll go into Twilight. We may as well.
You love it, mate.
Okay.
You love it. You got all the Twilight facts you have.
I know. It's because I read the books. I did enjoy the books. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna. You can chastise me for it all you want. I enjoyed the books. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't really enjoy the sort of the romantic element to it, but
it is what it is, isn't it?
Yeah, there's always going to be some sort of romance, even in like anime and stuff. There's always like shipping involved, isn't there? So, but yeah, so the wolves in that were shapeshifters, but they shapeshifted into specifically wolves. Wasn't anything else. So they were a natural defense against vampires. So maybe the thing, because vampires sort of take on a humanoid appearance. There's no sort of change in what they are. They always look like humans. In order to combat that, you need to unleash the beast. Become something more of yourself, and there's no other way to go You can't become a vampire to defeat vampires. You need to become something more deadly and more dangerous and more beastly. And humanity's always strived to be like the bigger sort of monster.
Like a vampire in its appearance is almost halfway between a human and a werewolf, isn't it? Pointy
Kind
ears,
of,
fangs, quite bestial. Mm.
So, you got to take it that step further, but you can't. Again, werewolves aren't undead. They are living, they are sort of mortal in a sense. The same way as what vampires are. They are the undead, but they still can be killed. But, it takes a sort of higher supernatural power to destroy all of them.
So so is it generally accepted that werewolves outrank vampires in like the power levels?
It's a power struggle.
It's probably more strength and stuff. I mean, werewolves have got more strength, but here's an interesting thing. Vampires can't become werewolves. Ignore what was said last time, apparently, but ignore that. But werewolves can become vampires because vampires are immune to all diseases and stuff like that. And werewolves are not undead, and vampires are undead. So technically, if a vampire overpowers a werewolf, that werewolf could technically become a vampire and into their ranks.
So if a werewolf was bit by a vampire in his werewolf form, is that just going to be like a normal vampire, or is that going to be some like crazy vampire werewolf hybrid?
I mean, I guess the vampirism would overwrite the werewolf, I suppose, because if the werewolf is a curse and disease, and the vampirism cures it, then technically they can't become a werewolf anymore.
Yeah, but technically a bite from a werewolf can kill a vampire.
Well, yeah, I mean, it can kill each other. I mean, it's kind of one of them power struggles you mentioned. It's like if the vampire manages to overpower the werewolf, then that's someone else in the ranks. If the werewolf kills the vampire, it's a dead vampire, isn't it?
I was just thinking from the way Luke was going on that werewolves are like just accepted as the supreme being, but he's just being a fanboy. That was all.
No, I'd say it's a power struggle. It's always been. When you have natural enemies, it's not always that they're the apex. It's just that you're both competing. Yeah. So like, I don't think we have any natural enemies as humans, do we really? So there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things that kill us. There's a lot of things that can kill us, but we can kill a lot of things. So it's not like maybe we are the natural enemy of a certain species, but generally speaking, I think we don't have any sort of power struggle between a natural force other than like viruses.
Well, I think that really we're our own natural enemy. Really. We
maybe that's the problem.
It's getting deep, man.
Maybe that is the problem, though. Because we have no natural enemy, we decide to destroy each other.
Wow.
Yeah, that is definitely a deep one to go with.
That's some deep one, man. I'm on the cusp of a rant. I'm not gonna. I want to go. I want to go. I want to start correcting the world right now, but I'm not going to do it because that's a rant for another podcast.
Yeah, but all we need as a species to come together is for another species to knock us off the top spot.
Yeah,
that's all we need.
Yeah.
If we got invaded tomorrow, do you really think people are going to start going off on BLM and things like that? I mean, by like aliens and stuff.
Yeah.
People aren't going to be like, well, I don't like you because you're a certain skin color or whatever, or you band together.
Yeah.
And then you fight a common cause.
Yeah, Independence Day.
Yeah. Have you seen Gurren Lagann? Back to anime. That explains this perfectly. Yeah. That goes into that. Brilliant. I'm not going to explain it, but yeah, this is an example. Don't worry.
Yeah. So yeah, supernatural or natural enemies of each other.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think who else. Would there be any other being that could come up, could make it a holy, a holy trinity? What am I talking about? Not a holy, like a trinity, but just a generic normal trinity. Nothing spiritual about it at all. Could that
I
be
think
turned
it'd be
into a quad?
witches.
Yeah, I was going to
I
say,
think
could
it'd be
there be a
witches.
quad? Yeah.
More than anything, it'd be witches, werewolves, vampires, because they're the most humanoid kind of things. Like skinwalkers, technically,
I wouldn't
might
put witches
not
in the
humanoid.
same. I wouldn't put witches in the same. I wouldn't. I don't know why. It just doesn't feel right putting them in the same bracket, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, witches are kind of, for me though, from everything that I've sort of watched, read, things like that, witches kind of, you have like your good witches and your bad witches, and they tend to be on either side of the playing field. More of like a, without, well, pun intended, like stirring the pot.
Way. Oh, mate,
You
you're
know,
on it tonight, aren't
I know.
Yeah.
I was going to say without a pun, but I might as well just go with it. So stirring the pot on either side.
you?
So but I think the werewolf vampire struggle is as sort of solid as what sort of angels and demons are.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
that there's a twist on it. So when obviously with a werewolf, if you look at them as good, when they become a werewolf, they turn bad. They're uncontrollable. They are a force to be reckoned with that has no way of slowing themselves down or thinking logically. It's all primal and instinctual, and there's no prejudice with a werewolf.
There's no influence, sort of.
Yeah.
There's been no conditioning to their mind. It's just strictly primal.
Exactly. And if the natural enemy of it is a vampire, then they'll probably more than likely fight a vampire if in close contact with him.
That's the point. So in lots of vampire depictions, like werewolves are said to be their enemy. But in any sort of depictions that's where the werewolf is central, is it pointed out that vampires are the enemy?
It's more humans than anything. So man turns into a beast and then attacks a load of people.
Yeah. That's just interesting, really, that, isn't it? Like, the werewolves are always said to be the enemy of the vampire, but the vampire is never, or not as often, said to be the enemy of the werewolf in, like, movies and comics and any sort of fantasy.
That might push the power struggle a little bit more for the werewolf, given that they don't discriminate on who they're going to kill. And vampires don't like things that they can't control. Same as what people are. They don't like things that they can't control. We're all power hungry in some form. This is my podcast. You will agree with me.
Oh, so you change your tune all of a sudden, Jesus.
Yes.
Wait till you get on my podcast, mate. Werewolf all over that bad boy.
Blood lad. Done.
Yeah, I'll check that out. I came across some stuff about werehogs, and a couple of there's about 3 different YouTube videos actually. I mentioned them briefly, and then other were type animals, and depictions tend to portray specific characteristics for the different types of were beings. Werewolves being wild, werehogs being like almost like trolls in their sort of warrior-like characteristics, and then there's were rats, which are very much like thieves if you want to compare them to something that you might already be aware of in their characteristics.
Aware of.
Oh yeah. I missed that one. But werewolves, again, another reason why I was like, why are they so special? Why do they get all the head time, or the limelight time rather? Because they're just like, just wild beings, where these other types of were animals in their depictions tend to have a bit more interesting characteristics. But again, you're all about that power and unstoppable force. The other were animals all tend to be a little bit more humane, so that might be.
It's just primal though, isn't it? It's it's throwing away your humanity and just going on a rampage of whatever like instinct takes over. So
I used to do that every 2 weeks before COVID, bruv, in town.
but no, it's kind of like, so again, being human's a really good example, but like you'd wake up next to like the carcass of a deer that you just ripped out. There's plenty of, there was the Amazon Prime series, what was it? It had Orlando Bloom in and Cara Delevingne. It had like fairies and werewolves and stuff like that.
Vampire Diaries?
No, shut up.
No, I mean, werewolves are in that. I remember, I think I mentioned it on the vampire one, where the werewolf had to like bite the guy that was bitten by another werewolf to cure him of the disease that the vampire gets, which completely contradicts something you guys said earlier about vampires not being able to get disease, but not in Vampire Diaries.
No. Carnival Row.
I never even heard that one though.
It's a Amazon Prime, I think I'm getting it right. It's an adaptation of like the UK, London, Ireland sort of thing, of supernatural sort of beings living alongside people. So there's fairies, there's werewolves, but in this, the werewolves are sort of like the enemy. So it's kind of a bit like the Witcher style war going on. So there's like a big front coming to destroy sort of like people's way of life. And the main character, who's Orlando Bloom, who's playing this, went to war against these people, and one of the things, the enemy decides that they can't kill his troops, so they inject themselves with some serum which turns them into werewolves. So they're like wolves in the day. So they inject themselves with this serum. Now, when they're fighting, they ended up overthrowing them and they killed the werewolves, blah, blah, blah. But one of the soldiers gets bitten. And he goes off into the woods at the next full moon and turns into a werewolf. So that's another sort of origin for him. So these beings, I don't know whether they took the blood from a werewolf already, or whether they created a serum that turned people into werewolves, and then the sort of disease spreads through biting and scratching and things.
Yeah.
But yeah, he ended up, one of the soldiers ended up becoming a werewolf, and Orlando follows him through the woods at night and then meets him when he wakes up, and has a chat with him. But they're like flashbacks of the war, whereas he's back in London, or what is meant to be London, being an investigator. So it's that's a nice sort of, or a really easy way of starting off the werewolf thing as well. You know, inject yourself with a disease, become something, and spread it. So maybe that could be a good origin for him. Somebody dabbled with the dark arts.
Oi, a bit of alchemy.
Exactly.
Back in the day.
Bit of alchemy, you know, turn yourself into a raging beast that's tidal locked. And yeah, you can spread the disease by biting while you're in this form.
So it's just taking the injections, and that remind me, was it Red Hulk or something like that? Yeah, took the injection.
Hulk.
Red Hulk's a boss.
So,
but not as much of a boss as werewolves.
Yeah. So the one question that I had was, if a werewolf in his human form, if he bit someone, would that person then become a werewolf?
We'll
leave it at that.
Yeah, that's a good way to leave it.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you for listening to the latest in the SleepyTalk podcast on our introduction to werewolves. Will there be a part 2? Who knows? I don't. So thank you to Ryan and Jordan for joining me yet again on this one.
Oh.
That sounded like a pug.
Maybe
I didn't want to be too.
Is a werewolf.
I didn't want to be too loud. No, I don't know how sensitive like the new setup is. So yeah, can you edit it and make me sound more beastly?
Yeah, just to kind of make it like put some reverb on it or something, you know. Kind of.
Yeah, I might do. Yeah,
some
I
sound
might just
good,
increase Might just increase
The high end.
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
So don't forget to check out the link for Ryan's new channel when I can find it, because I don't think it's been created yet. Has it?
There isn't one. The channel's up, but I've got no videos on there yet. Like,
Give me the channel link.
Nah,
Give me the
there's no
channel link.
yet.
I'll
There's no
put it in
link
the
yet.
description.
Nah, I want some content first, bro.
You've got content. You've just not uploaded it yet.
I ain't got no content yet.
No.
So, yeah.
Well, I'll try and get that link. If you do want the link, comment below. So for our Spotify listeners, don't forget to... I don't know what the rating is on Spotify. Click us as a star.
Just follow. You just follow the podcast. Yeah. And then when they minimize it, we're still here, bruv, because that's Spotify.
Oh, so we're still talking to people even though they've minimized Spotify.
Yeah, well, when I listen on my phone, that's why I like Spotify. That's why I always wait for them to be uploaded there, because I can listen like while I'm doing other stuff. Like I'm just generally using Spotify. Whereas if it's on the YouTube, I have to have my YouTube app open, and the screen is the biggest drain on the battery, so I don't like keeping the screen on.
And we'll leave it on that note. Goodbye.